All right. And we're live. Thank you everyone again for joining me today for my LinkedIn Live Practical Inclusion. I'd like to start by acknowledging the traditional owners of the lands on which I gather from today, which is the Wadawurrung people. And Michael, whose lands are you broadcasting from today?
Origine.
Awesome. And of course, the lands of the people that all of you are listening in from. And pay my respect to their elders, past, present and future, and to any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders that are joining us today or watching on the replay. Today I've got Michael Ray with me, and I must admit I'm a little tad disappointed because last week Rebecca Hunt came on and she presented in the same T-shirt she was wearing in the promotional image that she gave me. Now, Michael's promotional video had a really hilarious clown wig, and I'm disappointed that you're not wearing that today. I might have to make that a requirement going forward.
That's basically our family crest, Bree.
Is it really? Comes out often?
Yep.
Fantastic. Now, on these lives, I don't give you a long introduction, Michael. I leave it to the guests. So if you could perhaps tell us a bit about who you are and what it is that really drives you to do the work that you're doing in the inclusion space.
Michael Ray became a dad at 49 years old and a solo dad, just my daughter and I, at 51 when she was 2 years old. And it was at her fourth ballet concert, a 4-year-old ballet concert, that suddenly the world of equality came crashing down when I was banned as a male being allowed backstage to assist her at the concert, which would have left my daughter as the only child backstage without a parent to assist. And I was there at the 3-year-old, wasn't a problem. But when the information for the 4-year-old concert came out, there were mummy me ticket offers. Their mothers are expected to be at the 3-hour dress rehearsal. Mothers need to ensure the correct shade of lipstick. Mums need to do this. And right at the end and no males are allowed in the backstage area. So I raised that at the meeting saying, well, I have to be. I'm a parent. I'm her only parent. So, and then they asked me if she had a nan or an auntie, and I said yes to all of those, but I'm her parent. Thankfully, I'd become an honorary mum, being the only dad there for most of the time, and they all were up in arms and said, well, Michael's not allowed backstage. We're not either. And somebody got hold of the equal rights, me, and the media got hold of it, and it was funny seeing the feedback through the media. There was a lot of, well, no, it's understandable because he's a man. So straight away I was cast as some predator or a pedophile that was going to use this as an opportunity. A lot of other, I think the overwhelming support was, no, it's ridiculous this day and age. And at that point, we were just going through the marriage equality debate. And I wrote them a really nice email and said, you're meant to be the liberal arts, the bastion of contemporary thinking. You're going to have 2 mums, 2 dads, whatever combination right through. This is a great opportunity for you to go, thanks to the wonderful diversity, and make a big, and they did a no comment interview and just dug themselves further into the hole. But somebody actually said to me, this is reverse sexism. And that's where it planted the seed. Well, you can't actually reverse sexism. The reverse of sexism is equality. And it's just, for once, the male privilege had been taken away. But that's what I said to him, it's not reverse sexism, it's sexism. So from that, the media went nuts, and then a whole lot of other things just came crashing down to reality. A lot of the compliments that I would get for being such a great dad, doing basic parenting things, was borderline patronising. So, a lot of the times I couldn't help, oh, she's dressed so beautifully, and it's, I hire someone to do that. Really? And it was just, ridiculous. And from that, it's led me down the path to equality, and it made me realise too, a lot of the biases and things like that women suffer is actually self-inflicted. So I get trolling from both genders. I get a lot of dads saying to me, "You're not a real man, you know, you should be doing this," and all of those, you know, caveman type outdated things. But I also get it from a lot of mums telling me that you'll never understand what it's like to be a mother. You didn't carry her for 9 months. Every little girl needs a mum. All of these outdated tropes as well. And that's what I say to them. It's not just fathers that you're diminishing here. It's same-sex couples that may have achieved through surrogacy. It's adoptive, foster, step, the whole plethora of parents and grandparents who didn't carry that child. You're diminishing their connection, their love, but you're also damning women to basically be the be-all and end-all for parenting. But you also diminish women's identity associated just with being a parent. So while I get the you're not a real man if you don't want to go out and work and, you know, do all of these things, that you want to stay home and look after your child, a lot of women get that, oh, you don't want kids, or do you want more? Are you going to have more? And so we have so much of our identity tied up in our gender, and it's just made me realise that, wow, it's just ridiculous.
Mm-hmm. And I think, you know, what you've articulated is the reason I think you and I connected on quite early in this year around this topic, because we come at the gender stereotypes and gender roles discussion from completely different angles, but we're seeking to achieve the same objective. And that's what I really appreciate about the work that you're doing, is that different perspective that you're bringing to the idea that society has this ridiculous, is holding so tightly to these gender roles that don't fit or work for most people, let alone everybody. And the fact that you're being loud and proud about that is really quite inspiring and useful in this discussion.
I simply cannot grasp the concept that says the most masculine, manly, virile thing you can do as a bloke is to father a child or many children. But if you want to stay at home and nurture them and change their nappies and be with them, somehow you've just been castrated, and you know, it's just ridiculous.
Absolutely. And when we were talking, when we had a pre-call for this conversation, we spoke about what happens at the birth of a child and the way our gendered roles just kind of snap into play really quickly. Can you maybe elaborate on that for the audience?
Yeah. As I always say, Bree, I've got no doubt that I would have sleptwalked into the standard gendered, stereotypical, heteronormative world of parenting, simply because it's what I knew. It's not what I believe, but it's what I didn't take the time to examine. But being an older dad, I wanted to be more involved with my child. At 49, it was like, wow, I'm not going to miss a minute of this. But the first point of contact for new parents here in Victoria is called the Maternal and Child Health Centre. I've never felt more like a third wheel at these appointments. And the latest research shows as many as 1 in 7 men are suffering postnatal depression, and it's a perfect opportunity to screen them, because a less than optimal functioning dad can't really support mum, and not to mention it can damage and set the tone and trajectory for the child involvement and the family dynamics going forward from then on. But, you know, I've even had the school apologise to me in the early days for ringing me instead. Oh, sorry, we don't have mum's number, so we've had to call you. And so it goes, there are so many streams that flow into this thing that keeps women locked in the role of, you know, in charge of children and dads. We even have a child support system that creates a lot of problems, because it says that one parent should work and one parent should pay the other parent to raise it. Now, the money that's paid cannot, unless, you know, the paying parent is earning $1 million a year, the rent that you've got to pay for the extra bedrooms, the challenges to working, all the rest, I don't care how much you're getting, it's just ridiculous. And it's never going to be a fair trade. But what really happens in the beginning, because I believe mum had maternal instinct and all of those fetishised depictions of mum knows best, all the rest of it, I would defer to mum just naturally. what should I do? She's doing this. What happening? And just trying to be the best assistant, again, throws more pressure onto mum, because, as I always say, the highest paid jobs are in management level. So who's making all the decisions and all the rest of it? You know, in our attempt to be the best partner and best assistant, it's actually counterproductive. And, you know, a lot of the times there's a little bit of what's called maternal gatekeeping. So, mum, I know best, do it this way. And we know the negative outcomes for helicopter parenting or not giving people room to grow in their roles in any team. It keeps them at that level. They don't advance. So, you know, and it really isn't that hard, but we've just been convinced that it is.
And I imagine, and I know at times when I'm talking with you, I have to catch myself, because I imagine there'd be some women watching this live or on the replay who are starting to feel a bit uncomfortable with this conversation, and some of the concepts that you're raising. What always kind of calms me down is the fact that you recognise that you still do benefit from male privilege in many ways, but also the fact that you're identifying and pointing out structural barriers that aren't just a barrier for men, but are also a barrier for women and for other genders. You spoke a little bit about how you cop some flack from some women. Can you maybe talk a little bit more about that?
I get a lot of women and some really great friends say, it's ridiculous that you just get all of this attention and pats on the back for doing what mothers have done forever and that we do every day, and all of a sudden you're on television and radio and all the rest of it. And that's why I say to them, I agree, it is ridiculous, but it's no different to how we promote women in STEM and women leadership and have all of these things to show women what's possible. Because at the moment, I think that 4% of stay-at-home parents are now dads, and while it's still a small percentage, it's starting to represent a fascinating shift in our gender expectations. So at the moment, it's uncommon, but it's still slightly seen as unusual. So uncommon means it happens at regular intervals, but it happens regularly. Unusual means it's strange or weird. And so by me doing it and popping up and all the rest of it, we get rid of that unusual. But parenting seems to be the last bastion of being degendered, where it's mum and dad and it's not parenting. And, you know, when you study the parenting things, it's basically 4 approaches to parenting that, you know, authoritarian, authoritative, permissive, and neglectful. Doesn't matter the gender that's doing it. And when you do the studies, women are more likely to be the disciplinarian because it's just how it is. But I presume because they've got so much on and they need to have that, do it now, whereas dad swans in after work and it's all fun and games and, you know, he hasn't had the kids up to here for the whole day. So the gender doesn't apply to the approach, but the approach should be, you know, universal. There's a huge amount of research into the benefits of rough housing that comes naturally with dads, and it helps with risk taking and impulse moderation and all the rest of it. And a lot of the times when I'll do a talk, I'll have mums come up and say, but I don't have a father figure in the child's life. You know, is my child doomed? And that's why I'll say no, because you can roughhouse with them. It's the behaviour that passes on the benefits, not the gender of the person giving the behaviour.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very cool. Yeah. Now, I want us to talk about, and I think you were keen on this too, talking about parental leave and perhaps maybe the weaknesses that are in Australia's current parental leave system and some of the issues that you see with it.
The biggest problem is the gendered nature of it. The latest version of it is even more gendered. The countries that have the longest maternity leave, which on the surface would say, great, they're supporting mothers, also have the largest pay gap. So it makes it harder to get back in. I think Estonia has a ridiculous 6 years or something, and they have the largest pay gap. But again, it's just reinforcing that. Here in Australia, 2 weeks at minimum pay. It's just ridiculous. Most dads do it. It's a financial decision that we can't actually afford. So if dad's earning 120 and mum's earning 40, it just isn't affordable for a lot of dads to go, I'm going to take the time off. So it again reinforces it. Mum, of course, has to recover from the childbirth, so she needs the initial part of it. But if we made it, and again, what would seem to be something that supports women by going, great, we're going to give them more leave and we're going to aim more at the mum, it actually has a counterproductive thing, because it sets them up where they're better, they have more time in role, they know the child better, they get into routines better, and it just starts right from the beginning. And there's a lot of assumptions that are made, men don't want to do it, and it's not. It's just, well, mum, you're good at it, you're doing it, I'm going to bring home the bacon, so I'm going to sacrifice my time with the kids to make it easier. I'm going to work even harder to make sure that, we're financially secure so they stay away a lot. And those years are gone. So there's a lot of organisations that pat themselves on the back and go, fantastic, we've put a shared parental leave in place. And then the minute dad gets called up to do the school run or a sports day or something like that, but, Tom, we're busy, can't you get your wife to do it? And that's why I say puppies and kittens aren't just for Christmas, and dads aren't just for paternity leave. They both have ongoing responsibilities from the day they become a parent right through. So if we made it a use it or lose it, because sometimes, and I know it's not meant to happen, but an organisation goes, gee, 2 candidates, a woman at childbearing age and a man at childbearing age, chance she's going to step out of the workforce. We're not meant to do it, but if he has a child, he's going to work hard to support, because he'll fall into that breadwinner role. Mum's going to be in and out, and I know it's against the law, but if it was a non-gendered, any incentive to hire one or the other would be removed, because they would have to make the same allowances.
I think I spent a bit of time, we ran a little dads in parenting group once upon a time at Deakin, and really listened to the concerns that a lot of the men had around really desperately wanting to spend more time with their children and wanting to work part-time or work flexibly, but not feeling that that was at all a smart decision for their career. And we know that that's what plays out in reality for women. So, looking at that, they go, well, even for me, there's an even higher, feels like a higher penalty, which is an interesting take on things, I think. But I think the interesting thing and the basis of this discussion really is that the gendered nature of parental leave, even though it's moved to parental leave, still exists, and how organisations actively break that down and create equality and really encourage men and people of all genders to take their time as parents that they need.
Yeah, it's funny. A lot of higher people that I train and that I'm involved with will sneak off. They won't tell why they're leaving, and that's why I say I'd like to see everyone have a thing where it's called leave loud. I'm leaving at 3 because I have to do this, with my kids. I'm coming in at 9:30 because this week I'm doing the school drop-off. And funnily enough, one of the biggest things that happens within men is the perception that the family court is biased against them. And that's why I'd say it's not. They just want the status quo to continue. So don't turn up at the family court saying, I want 50-50, when you had the opportunity to have it before, where you could have said to your wife, this week I'll do the school runs, the school drop-offs, the before or after school. Because if you turn up at the family court and say to the judge, if things go wrong, this is what we did, it was 50-50, the judge just wants that to carry on. But if you turn up there going, no, she did it all, but now I'm going to do it, the judge is just going to look at you and say, well, why weren't you doing it before? And then the answer will be, well, I had to work. Well, guess what, sunshine? You still have to work. They're still your family. You still support them. So let's just keep it going, because it worked fine then. And all of a sudden, the family court hates me. They don't. They don't, it's just, organise, get your ducks in a row well beforehand, and, you know, don't benefit from your wife doing the majority of the work, because she sacrifices everything. And that's, you know, when they say, oh, but, you know, I had to give away my super. And I've gone, great. So what you want to campaign for, rather than crying about giving away your super, is women should be paid super as part of maternity leave, because there is a completely gendered penalty that there's no way around, that affects only women when it comes to child. And I just can't understand why super isn't doing it, because you take 2 years out of your work, say, have a child at 28, stay at home until 30, go back. What does 2 years' wages and super equate to by the time you retire? And we wonder why women are the fastest growing, you know, homeless and poverty things. And you know, for too long, we're parking the ambulance at the bottom of the cliff rather than coming back to the top of the cliff and saying, stay back from the edge, we can fix this.
Yeah, fantastic. You've absolutely nailed it there. I wanted to ask you a bit, we've got a few minutes left, and I wanted to ask you about what role, I know what role you're playing in the gender equality debate, but what role do you think men should be playing more broadly in the gender equality debate or movement?
I think one of the problems with the gender equality debate, I actually had a diversity and inclusion person when I mentioned about single dads have this problem as well. When we talk about affordable childcare, it's affecting women's participation in the workforce. And I said, well, it's affecting parents. And me as a single dad, I faced the exact same challenges with my child, with access and all the rest of it. And she actually said to me, single dads are that small a part of the problem that they're not really on my radar. And I just couldn't, and that's why I said, so a minority isn't of interest to a diversity and inclusion thing. And I think what's happened is it's constantly been framed as women, and the rule of self-interest applies sadly to a lot of us busy people, where we go, yep, great, I wish them well, and good luck with it. But if we framed it more with men are affected because we're locked into the role of breadwinners, we have time where we can't get away from our kids, it's childcare is a parenting thing and a family thing, all of a sudden our ears spark up and go, oh, hang on, that affects me. And so, you know, I say to guys, a lot of the stuff that you say goes unsaid. When, of course, I support women's equality. Yeah, but what are you actually doing for it? Because it's all very good to say, yes, you should be able to do everything and have the same opportunities and equal pay, and there are laws and all the rest of it. But if the woman's hands are full from all of the home, the unpaid, the caring, the homework, the domestic chores, how can she possibly be expected to grasp it? So a lot of the equality debate has made it easier for women to work outside of the home without a concurrent effort to let men go back into the home to free them up to grab those opportunities and to rise. And that's why I say we've focused on the finish line. Yep, we've all got to get to there. But the starting line, it's a huge handicap that just, you know, hasn't been addressed. And blokes go, oh, I don't have male privilege. I've gone, well, you sort of do, because, you know, even the expectations within the workplace. I know I got passed over. I didn't have opportunities offered to me. And then when I mentioned, why did so-and-so get offered that project? Oh, we didn't think you'd be interested because it would mean extra hours and you've got Charlie, and it's, well, but I'm more qualified. Yeah, well, and the other thing that really gets me is we had a minister to address the brain drain, where our best and brightest were getting recruited out of university to go overseas. And the amount of qualified, experienced, just brilliant talent that step out of the workforce as women simply because the madness between having to care for their children, and it's just wasteful. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah. Fantastic. Yeah, absolutely. And I think the bit that kind of really stands out for me there is, as you say, it is about also recognising that everybody's a parent and that single dads are important in this conversation as well. But if we can highlight and raise, and this is the angle I always come at it from, if we can raise the amount of dads and the role dads are playing as parents, and break down those gender stereotypes and expectations, we help everybody. It's not just about helping women. It is about gender equality, and it helps everyone, and that has so much of a flow-on effect back to women and to other genders as well, that it just is silly not to progress down this route. And I really particularly like your comments around men being good-willed and good-intentioned about this work, but not actually stepping up and doing something. And I know, and I spend a lot of time with men in my inclusive leadership training and other courses talking about this topic, and I hear men say that they're frightened to speak up, that they're worried they're going to do the wrong thing, they don't want to take the microphone off the women, which are all totally plausible excuses. But I guess my response then is always, you know what, it is scary, but people of diverse backgrounds and diverse genders are constantly having to fight up against these things, and they don't have a choice to step out. And when you have a choice to step out, I think you should choose to step in.
Diversity is everything, right across, even in nature. You know, Darwinism was the more adaptable, the more diverse and the more inclusive our economy and our workforce is, the more safeguarded it is against crashes. It's the old all the eggs in one basket, but it's also diversity of thought, stuff that I would never be able to consider, that a woman or a transgender or somebody who's had a completely different experience in reality. And that's why I say to my daughter all the time, Charlie, I say, Bub, don't worry about trying to figure out where someone is wrong. Try and figure out why they think they're right. So try and find the things, and a lot of the times you go, now I see what you're saying, because instead of looking for fault because it doesn't, jar with your reality, it's just, well, I can see if I was you raised that way and experienced that, I would think exactly the same thing, and we can all get along a little bit better.
Absolutely. Now, we've only got a couple of minutes left, so I just wanted to firstly say thank you so immensely for coming on and having this conversation with me. Michael, where can people find you? What things are you up to if they want to find out and hear more from you?
michaelray.com.au is my website. A lot of writings and some of the media. I do a bit of public speaking to some organisations if they want me. Just anything, write for pieces, and just trying to spread the word for dads, showing them that it's the best thing you'll ever do, and it's not that hard.
That's cool. Excellent. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in again this week. I'll be back next week. I am so incredibly privileged to have a young person join me next week, a young 18-year-old who's doing a lot of amazing work with -18. So please be sure to tune into that. I also, in the next couple of weeks, that inclusive leadership course that I'm always talking about, a next cohort's going to get started. So if you're considering it, please reach out and make contact with me, and we can chat about whether it will fit for you. So thank you to those who are watching on Facebook and on LinkedIn Live, and feel free to share this video around. Thank you, Michael.
Thanks, Bree.